Now that I have my hole dug out, my neighbors are actually having a party right now, I can put my tomato in. Let me show you how I put my tomato and plant my tomato. This is kind of important. I purchased a full-size established tomato plant, and you can see I have its pot sitting right here in the ground, but see how it's sitting slightly up? I'm going to show you why I did that. Let's get it out of its pot. I'm just going to squish either side. Be careful not to break the whole thing. I want to carefully get it out of its pot. This is the most fragile part of doing this. It has the cage inside too, which is making it a little difficult, but I'm going to shake the whole thing out. Oh, very, very difficult. But it's root bound too. There we go. As much as I was watering it, look at all that dry moisture right there. So now you see it fits in a little better, but I'm going to break down the root here. Kind of break that up, loosen everything, and set it inside right here. A little bit. There we go. Now that everything's loose, I gave it twice as much space inside my hole, and this is a very, very small tomato cage for it, but I'm going to try and give it a little bit more support down. As you watch, as I work right here, I'm going to pinch these off, these lower limbs. They really don't do much of a, good job or purpose at the moment. So, pinch those off. It's just extra leaves. Here's another one up here. Pinch that off. And I will support this with another cage. You can see it's a little floppy right now. Pinch that lower one off. That's my neighbors having a party. But up here, this is my first set of, tomatoes right there. I'm not gonna mess with that. This limb right here isn't producing anything. Take that off. I could be using, scissors, but all right, now all that's exposed and open. What I'll do next is right down here, I'm gonna add my compost. I have my bag of compost right here. I'm just gonna add all that right at the root base. Organic compost. My little buckets in there too. That is not enough. I'm going to add a lot more than that. I grabbed some more compost. I'm going to add it to the top. I love using compost. Not only does it have, obviously the nutrients, but it helps to retain moisture as well. So got a good amount of compost in here now. Pushing it all around. And I'm going to keep traveling up. As I replace my soil back, I'm going to put it higher and higher all around the tomato. So almost creating like a mound of soil around it. It will root a little bit around that mound, but it also keeps everything sturdy. And I'll add a support stake as well. But let the tomatoes sit on top. I'm pushing that, hard packing it around. And that'll help retain moisture in case of very hot days, or I can't, water it immediately. Now the last thing I'll do is these limbs. Now that one snapped a little bit. We'll see if it still supports that. Unfortunately, during the transport home, But this limb right here that is just hanging out, I'm pulling him to the top and having him support instead of this doing all the support. Grabbing any more, that one's sitting up there. This one, that one can't really support yet. But anything, just pulling it up to the upper ring and making it do the work, not the actual fruiting part of the plant. Like right there. There we go. Now it's just time to water. The last thing I made was a little watering well. That way, as I'm watering, the watering concentrates to the center of the plant and then expands out. Taking a look here, this plant is about maybe half the size of my other one that I just showed you. But I made sure to give it a nice deep hole. First thing I'm doing is I'm filling this whole hole with compost, give it a good area to root in. And then because this one is already developing flowers here, flowers there, I'm not going to bury it higher than it needs to be. Now what I can do is right here, I can pinch this one off. This one is excess, doesn't need it. These little ones, you know, show you right here, don't need this one, don't need that one. Take all these little extra ones off, keeping this one that has, you know, flowers on it. This one up here doesn't have anything, so I can pinch that one away. But sometimes it's a myth when they say, oh, take the sucker out because you won't get any right here. They call this like a sucker. Take that out because it won't produce anything. Not true all the time, because guess what's producing here? Flowers, which means you're limiting your amount of tomatoes that you might get. This isn't producing anything. This didn't produce anything, but right here was my flower. Again, here's another one, and right there producing flowers. So make sure you really concentrate where you pinch some of your extra, you know, branches off, because you could reduce the amount of plants that you, the tomatoes you produce. Using my old orchid pot scoop. I love repurposing things, and this is actually a perfect scoop for scooping out my compost. Let's measure, take my pot, put it in here. That looks pretty good. I'm going to give one more scoop of compost. Here we go. Let's see. I'm going to give one more. Alright, that should be perfect. Can I spread that out a bit? Now, I can take this, squeeze it, pull it out. That is extremely root bound. Give you a better view down here. Oh, that is my other plant. So, right here, I'm just going to break up the roots a little because I want them. Now, one thing I did do, this is soaking wet. I let it soak in water beforehand. That way, it doesn't dehydrate quickly. I'm going to use that stake and just really stake it down. And then I'll put a cage around it, obviously. But then take my, oh, I'm jumping. Oh, my neighbors are having a party, so that's what you hear in the background. Then I'm putting compost around it. And this will be all the nutrients it needs. I'm using an organic compost. I don't have to fertilize anymore for the rest of the season. And my sandy soil will both let water down and retain water down below, but not on the surface. The surface, it dries out really quickly. So that's why I'm concentrating a lot of the compost here to help keep it moist as well and absorb, you know, water as well. And then just pushing my sand back up. One thing I like to do is I create a mound around it, and then I create a little well. That way the water goes straight down to the center and then spreads itself out. Just a little bit of time and I have my garden, at least my tomatoes right now, planted. And I'll show you in a sec what type of tomatoes they are. Here's a final look at my garden. The big one right here is a sweet million. This is going to produce hundreds of cherries. So I'm looking forward to this one. It's already ready. I got this one early from the greenhouse. They already had it fully established. I was so excited. And really inexpensive. They only wanted $15 for it. Now this one is another cherry, but I cannot recall which one I got. It's the one that wasn't labeled, but I was told by the cashier what it was, but I cannot recall now. And then the last one I got was the yellow pear. That's another sweet cherry. It should produce, a ton of tomatoes, and I love using them. I freeze any that I can't eat right away. I put them into my sauces, my salsas. They're fantastic for all that, and they give everything just that little sweet taste. Hope you enjoyed, and keep following because I'm still filling in this garden. This is a little teaser of what I still have to add. I'll speak more on all of this in my next video.